Welcome to Taking the Higher Road. I'm Leah Shaver, President and CEO of the National Transportation Institute. Each week, we interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver life cycle as we discuss today's greatest challenge, recruiting and retention of your valuable workforce. I'd like to thank and highlight the show's valuable sponsors. Their dedication and commitment to the industry and to this show is greatly appreciated. Let's be real, change is hard. Not just managing and navigating it as it comes at you, but also actively trying to promote change within our organizations to drive success in the areas where we're trying to grow, excel, and create results. Enter today's guests. Beth Potratz, one of my closest peers and confidants in the industry, and a regular guest on Taking the Higher Road in her work as founder and head of the driver recruiting platform Drive My Way. And Leigh Sauter, a longtime marketing and change management pro in trucking and supply chain companies. They have started a new initiative, Spark Change Labs, aimed at helping individuals and companies navigate change within internal company structures, promoting momentum for change around specific goals within organizations and trucking companies, and in creating time, space, and opportunity for great minds to come together to discuss moving past barriers across the industry. Leigh, Beth, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Leah. We're really excited to spend some time with you today to talk about sparking meaningful and sustainable change in organizations and across the whole industry.
Excellent. Well, let's dive right in. You are both very busy people, obviously, running your own companies and working in other capacities throughout the industry. Yet recently, when we talked about Spark Change Labs, you were both so energetic and passionate about the work you're doing and plan to do. So give us a quick story behind it. What was the catalyst for the two of you starting the new venture and the passion that's so evident? Beth, start with you, and then Leigh, jump in and give your story behind the Spark.
Yeah, so as most people know, I have spent my entire career leading change and transformation initiatives. And Leigh and I met at a session I was facilitating for the Transportation Marketing Sales Association conference last year in Chicago. And we discovered that we share this passion for driving change and helping people solve real problems in a way that builds both commitment and capabilities at every level in the organization. Then we met with a fellow supply chain HR colleague, Angela Mahoney, to discuss and tease out some of the major problems across the supply chain and how we might put our talents to work to make a difference. And that's how Spark Change Lab was founded.
Yeah, and I was just so excited. I met Beth at the Supply Chain Summit, and she facilitated this session that was really so much less about sitting in the audience and being spoken at, and so much more about what are the real problems, how can we really solve them, and just really saw the potential in putting that to work for all kinds of different issues in the supply chain. And so I was just really so excited to partner with her on this.
Engaging and driving excitement, Beth. That is two ways that I would describe you. So now that we have the background, tell us about Spark Change Labs more specifically. It's kind of in the name, I'm guessing, labs that are meant to spark change, but I don't want to make any assumptions. I do know you're taking a three-pronged approach. You've got a widespread access via online webinar style labs where a group can come together and discuss an overarching topic. You've got ideas like drilling down into specific strategies to address those topics. The second prong being live labs at industry conferences and events with aims at engaging attendees, just like Leigh was saying, rather than talking at them as we've all grown weary of. And the third prong is internal projects at a company level in which you can engage with leaders and have internal labs to figure out solutions to challenges or to chart new ways forward. High-level synopsis for me, but drill into each of those if you don't mind. And tell us about some of the events you've held and then what's in the plans. Leigh, I'll turn it over to you first.
Thank you. So yeah, you're absolutely right about the three-pronged approach. We have the online webinar style labs, and they're really meant to introduce the methodology and help people understand the power of the format. We bring together industry experts from all over the place to tackle some pressing issues in real time. And we've already held 2 successful labs in that format. This past May, we focused on veterans, so attracting, retaining, supporting veterans transitioning from the military to careers in supply chain, and figuring out how to bridge the gap and help companies tap into that valuable talent pool and make sure that they're supporting them in a meaningful way inside their organizations as well. And then we also held a lab on navigating mergers and acquisitions in the industry, which was particularly timely given the economic pressures the industry's been experiencing, making it just a critical topic for industry leaders to understand and be able to navigate within their trucking companies. And then, yes, we're looking forward to 2 in-person labs in the next few months to bring that energy and collaborative spirit directly to industry gatherings. So we will we'll be back at the TMSA Executive Summit, partnering together to tackle how to elevate marketing, which kind of builds really on the past session that Beth did. How do we take it from a mere support function to that strategic driver of growth? And then we're also really thrilled about our upcoming live lab at Women in Trucking, which is titled No More Idling, From Lip Service to Real Progress for Women in Trucking, which, as you can probably tell from the title, it's designed to address the disconnect between the company's intentions of inclusivity and those day-to-day realities experienced by women in the industry. And then lastly, you also mentioned taking Spark Change Lab that approach directly into individual companies. And so there we work with leadership teams to address whatever specific internal challenge they're experiencing. It's designed to leverage the collective wisdom inside from the company's own talent, facilitated by our team to spark change directly from within. And they're designed to be dynamic and collaborative sessions that give people at all levels a voice in problem solving and decision making within the company itself.
Well, what are some topics or themes or challenges that you foresee tackling with in terms of online webinars or live events in the upcoming year? What can we look forward to learning about from the labs planned and the topics that might be on your battle board to cover in the future? What do you say, Beth?
So I would say that the most powerful aspect of the Spark Change Lab is that the problems that we tackle are identified by members of the supply chain community itself. So just a few of the topics that have been brought to our attention that are sort of on our list to get at are things like how to create a culture that fosters diversity, equity, and inclusion, how to start ERG groups, things like that. Managing in the middle, how to prepare individuals to assume manager roles, and what are the different types of skills and competencies required to manage both up and down in the organization as compared to the skills and competencies that they were able to master as an individual contributor. How to address better adoption and human behaviors when implementing new technologies or work processes. We can literally tackle any problem with this Spark Change Lab methodology.
Each of them resonated with me, so I'm guessing they're also going to resonate from our on behalf of our listeners. In terms of the formats of the labs, including the internal events, you also produce resources available for free, I believe, to anyone who would like to access and use them. Leigh, tell us how and where people can access those and what format they can expect, and then how you would recommend using them.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to keep all the insights to ourselves, and we realize people learn differently. So we take from each lab, we take away the insights. We summarize the challenge. What are the different ways that you might approach it within your organization? So we produce resource guides, and we also produce playbooks. We have those available already for the veteran session and the mergers and acquisition session right on our website at sparkchangelab.com. We also push out a lot of our content and our upcoming labs, information about our upcoming labs on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the internal company labs and put it in the context of our audience, recruiting and retention professionals at trucking companies and private fleets primarily. If I'm leading a recruiting department at a motor carrier and I'm listening to this and thinking, wow, this is what I need for my company, or maybe my company needs this for me, let's talk to that person right now. Because over the last 10 years, recruiting departments have changed dramatically within fleet organizations. They've become much more of an integral part of operations, and many of them have even developed their own marketing team members now specific to their goals in recruiting. There's a lot of change management internally, and there's also an aspect of recruiting leaders being in the position to identify areas of needed change in their organization. How do you foresee those types of labs working internally for our audience? And what would be the goals of engaging in the exercise? Beth, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so the Spark Change Lab format is an excellent way for a recruiting leader to engage their own team and their internal customers that they serve. We all know that despite how amazing a recruiter or a recruiting team might be, it takes people from across the entire organization to hire anyone, ranging from hiring managers to marketing, recruiting, safety and compliance, HR, finance, and more. So some challenges that an HR or a talent acquisition leader might want to tackle with a Spark Change Lab might include things like how to create a positive candidate experience that reflects the employment experience and company culture, how to leverage data and insights to improve our ability to attract and retain talent, or how to create a robust talent pipeline within the organization, or workforce planning, but better succession plan, just to name a few. We both know, Leah, that in the past 18 to 24 months, it's created some pretty significant organization changes, especially in talent acquisition. Our Spark Change Lab team often gets asked by new HR or talent acquisition leaders to come on site to conduct new leader assimilations with their team so that they can quickly become acquainted with each other and become aligned on some expectations, operating styles, organization priorities, and allow the leader an opportunity to put their vision out there and how they can come together as a leadership team to make that vision a reality. That's just one of the many customized sort of team building experiences that we conduct, leaving the team with immediate actionable results or plans that they can put in place to get results following the session. It's applicable for any organization and any team within an organization, not just HR or talent acquisition.
The adopting technology topic I run into on a weekly basis in the consulting side of my business, and frankly in my own business, I would also argue. But it also makes me think about drivers, and when we instill new technology and the resistance or unknown that can be that you can be faced with, in terms of your mobile workforce. And then sometimes there's new technology that's going to be implemented to improve efficiencies, right? Or decrease duplication. I could think of many, many different avenues, but ultimately it's not always as adopted or accepted by the actual team or the folks on the floor as it is by leaders that think it will drive productivity or enhance the work experience. So very interested in that one in particular, and how you can spark some change across these businesses.
Yeah, actually, I love that question. So, obviously I've been doing this for a long time. Sadly, the question on how do you do that too often gets asked after a project or new initiative has already begun or launched, and sometimes even after it's already implemented and it's not working. It's a little late to be asking that type of a question. And in the supply chain in particular, the supply chain individuals are masterful at solving complex problems. It's what we do every day, and we're quick to gravitate to just jump right in those solutions and start solutioning and become laser focused on the technical aspects of the project and those deliverables. But based on my experience, if you're going to try to create meaningful and sustainable change, it really does require equal attention to both the technical and the change management aspects of the project. And that includes everything from building the commitment on why the change is being made, helping people understand what exactly is changing, and even importantly, what is not changing, and how it's going to impact each individual in the organization. So to do it well, you really have to step back and dive in by having the people impacted by the problem, as you mentioned, especially if you have like a mobile workforce, have them dive in to help tease out and truly define the problem so everyone's on the same page of what's the problem we're trying to solve. And then identifying some criteria up front on how they would describe a desired outcome. And then at that point, you'd be ready to engage in identifying some solutions.
Sounds like we've got focus groups being put together behind the scenes right now. One area that I'm passionate about, focus on in our industry, is the next generation of truck drivers, reaching them, attracting them to our industry by creating and articulating career path, showcasing the value and security of trucking careers to younger people and to women, recruiting them into our organizations, and working hard to follow through on our promises to them so we can retain them for the long term. And of course, working with fleets to navigate a changing workforce in terms of working with multiple generations, all who bring different mindsets and attitudes to the company. Leigh, you have a lot of thoughts and insights on this topic and how it ties to Spark Change Lab. How does the work that you're doing and plan to do relate to those ideals of companies engaging with 4 and soon to be 5 generations in the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, engaging multiple generations in our workforce has always been important, but it's certainly not becoming less challenging. With each generation and each person truly brings their own unique perspective to work. And I think broadly speaking, we're definitely seeing that younger employees are prioritizing transparency, purpose, improved work life balance. And I think it's that transparent and collaborative nature of the labs that we're putting on that really speak to their desire for open communication and having a voice in decision making. And then at the same time, the structured approach with facilitators and the focus on actionable outcomes, that really aligns also with anyone who has more traditional workplace values. So we feel really strongly that this lab concept, it's just not about solving specific problems. It's about modeling a new way of working and helping bridge those generational gaps. And I think by embracing an approach like this with us or within, companies can create a better culture that attracts and retains talent across all different age groups.
Agreed. Beth, you have a long history of working with companies as an HR consultant and now in your 10 years of running Drive My Way. You are so well versed in seeing internal barriers within the organization and really the industry at large and trying to find ways to move past, or I would argue through, those barriers. As you start a similar journey with Spark Change Lab, what are some of the common barriers that you've seen within companies to implement positive change momentum, to tackling critical issues internally, and to finding paths to success? And how will Spark Change Lab put your longtime experience in that area to work in those areas? Did you get all that?
I got all that. And one thing we're good at is, setting up barriers. I feel like people don't like to change, right? So we immediately want to revert back to whatever we're doing or, stick with what we're used to. So it's very common when you embark on a large transformation that you're going to have to overcome lots of barriers. And in my experience, involving those people that are closest to the problem from all levels and disciplines within the organization in the process itself, sometimes might make a leader resistant, because leaders are sometimes fearful that doing all of that and the focus groups and the getting everybody together and all the cost and expense and the time commitment is really going to make it all just take longer. Why can't we just start doing something about it? When in reality, it really does help create the necessary foundation for true sustainable change that's built on commitment, and it actually accelerates the process in the long run because you've got the people closest to the problem involved from the beginning. Everybody's got skin in the game. You're able to identify, differences on desired outcomes or people's impression of what the change is really all about. And you can tackle those all right up front because they're kind of happening live in the room. So you don't have to wait until, something's out there in the wild and you're trying to implement only to find out that you didn't have alignment from the beginning. So it really is truly a magical process. But it takes a leap of faith and trust in the process, especially first and foremost from the leader, but also from the folks who come and join and have to be genuinely engaged in it.
Leigh, how about you? How do you see Spark Change Labs in your experience and background aiding companies to find their barriers and work around or through them?
Yeah, I mean, I think With Beth and Angela, I really consider us a triple threat. I mean, while Beth and Angela have been revolutionizing the HR side of things, I have spent my career in the trenches with sales and marketing and communications and operations. And I've seen firsthand how things can get very interesting when departments aren't on the same page. And what I've too often found is there's a disconnect between how a company presents itself to the world, like their brand, and what's actually happening inside, like their culture. And they're speaking two different languages. And that's where my passion and experience comes in. And I think when you put our forces combined, it's like we have this 360-degree view of what companies in our industry need to succeed. And we're not just looking at one thing, at recruitment, at retention, or anything in isolation, really. We're considering that whole picture. And I think having facilitators and having that industry experience on all different fronts really helps us to just be more successful in guiding change and guiding outcomes in this way.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me is the two of you having diverse experience, and then your push for companies to be open to having a diverse panel, if you will, for the discussion. When I work with companies that are having a problem, a lot of times they're only asking the senior level workers, whether it's leaders, as you said, Beth, or even the longest tenure drivers, for example. And your longest tenure driver gets the best loads, gets home on time every week. They've got kind of a predictable routine, even if it's just down to the number of miles or amount of money that they make. And so it doesn't take into account the perspective of a newly tenured driver or someone who's low on the totem pole and doesn't even get a bid on what they're going to do this week. It just gets handed to them. So diversity in terms of your panel and your team, I think is, again, really standing out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps you get past those barriers, right? Because you've already got those voices in the room. I think the other thing that really stands out for us is that, a lot of people think of consultants as, people that come in and they're going to write a prescription for you of, here's, we've heard your problem, here's your solution. For us, it's very, very different. Like, this is literally a completely engaging experience that we create for you and your organization, so that you can understand and delve into your own problem and come up with solutions while you're also creating alignment, creating the what's in it for me. And you're basically creating a team of change agents or champions from the folks who are able to go through this very deep, accelerated learning experience that we create. And then they're kind of out there talking to folks when they go back to their roles or whatever part of the organization that they're from, and helping to carry it out.
Well, Beth, while you've got the mic, our audience, as they are your audience, recruiting and retention professionals. So any final thoughts that you want to add? Anything that I missed that we didn't address? You've been here before, so you know everything that I typically would need to cover with you.
Yeah, absolutely. All I would say is we've all been through a lot. I feel like we've really been through the ringer, but we're really good at it because we've done so much. And I would just say that the most important thing for me is that to recognize that we're all in this together and that you don't need to do it alone. And if you're struggling with something, whether you're an individual in the organization or you're a leader in the organization, there's somebody else out there struggling with it as well. So, if there's anything that you feel that we've missed that you personally would like to explore as an audience member with us, we can be reached via email at hello@sparkchangelab.com. You can visit the website, sparkchangelab.com, to view the previous labs that we've done. You can actually see recorded versions of the live sessions that we've done, so you have a feel for how one's done publicly, and can kind of envision how we might go about it, doing it internally. And you can also stay informed of upcoming labs, as well as let us know if you've got a topic that you want to bring to the lab, or if you personally feel like you might be able to contribute either as an individual who's a representative example of somebody that has the problem, or one of our experts who kind of represents a passion around solving a particular problem, because we'd love to have you come and join one of our sessions.
open forum, it sounds like. Leigh, how can we get in touch with you, and where can the audience access additional resources in terms of Spark Change Lab material?
Absolutely. Our website, sparkchangelab.com, has a resources page and all the recordings that Beth just mentioned. And again, I'll just plug our LinkedIn because that is typically where we release our upcoming events and release our new materials.
And that's at Spark Change Labs?
At Spark Change Lab on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
One lab, not multiples. Spark Change
One lab. That's
Got
right.
it. Okay. I don't want to give you the wrong info. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us on today's show, Beth and Leigh. And I can't wait to start seeing all of these resources that you're producing out in the wild. And more importantly, for our audience to take part live and in person in a Spark Change Lab.
Thank you so much for having me.
Come and see us at Women in Trucking in November. We kick off the conference on Sunday afternoon with a live Spark Change Lab. And then we're also doing a live lab in Hoboken, New Jersey for the TMSA Summit.
Excellent. No talking at people in your sessions. Everyone is engaged when they meet up with Beth and Leigh. Well, I want to thank you for joining us on another episode of Taking the Higher Road. Stay tuned for next week's show when Jeremy Raymer returns to Taking the Higher Road for another engaging conversation. Please know that your feedback is very important to us, and your kind reviews keep us on the hunt for more great talent to put in front of you. Please remember to rate and review Taking the Higher Road on whatever platform you're using to listen. Once again, a special thanks to today's sponsors, and until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.